Welcome to She Sells Radio. One of the things that I love most about LinkedIn is just having the ability to connect with incredible people around the globe who otherwise we might not have the chance to connect with. And my guest today is someone I probably never would have had the chance to connect with had we not been hooked up on LinkedIn, which I love. So my guest today is Mafalda Johannsen, who is the business development director at Wonderway, a German sales enablement startup. And part of what is fun about this and where I love the synchronicity of it all is literally just a few days ago, I was on a call for the Salesforce Influencer Program, and we were all talking about the top AI platforms for sales. Now, I'm listening in on this call while driving my 3-year-old son to a doctor's appointment. And some of my colleagues start like listing off platforms, and they say Wonderway. And I'm driving, and my mom is actually in the car with us. And I was like, Mom, grab your notepad, write down Wonderway. I need to learn more about it. Totally not even putting two and two together that Mafalda, who I'm interviewing today, is the business development director at Wonderway. So I thought this is very synchronistic and I love how it comes together. So I'm excited to have that kind of that connection and be able to talk more about what you're doing there on the show. And so at Wonderway, Mafalda reviews and improves hundreds of onboarding and training programs, does incredible sales webinars. She hosts 2 different sales podcasts. So we'll tell you more about those too and where to get plugged in and listen to those. And she's also working on a sales book in Portuguese. So I love how diverse and expansive her interests are. And outside of that, she's a Masterclass instructor at SDRs of Germany and the PR and marketing manager of a jazz fusion band called, is it Plasticine? Am I saying that correctly? Okay, awesome. Awesome. Mafalda, welcome to She Sells Radio. I'm so excited
wow.
for this conversation with you.
No, I'm so excited. Thank you, first of all, so much for having me. And second, for surprising me with that story. I mean, I can't wait to tell my CEO that you heard about us in the Salesforce. I mean, that means I'm doing my job right.
Oh my gosh. No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, it was a big topic of, hopefully I can say this. I think I could say this, but it was a big topic of conversation because as I'm sure you're aware, everyone right now is talking about AI for sales and what are the best platforms and tools. And I'm getting asked a lot of questions. My colleagues in that program are getting asked. And when they said Wonderway, again, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together, but I spent part of this weekend researching Wonderway. And so I was like, oh, I need to start recommending this to some of my clients too.
Yes,
so
amazing.
Anyway, full circle.
Great. This is the best way to start this, for me at least.
I love it. I love it. So we'll talk about what you're doing there too, but I also want to talk about you as a person, as an individual. We were connecting before we hit record just about, you had a fun post on LinkedIn. By the way, we'll tell you, for you listening, we'll tell you where to connect with Mafalda and follow her on LinkedIn because she does a great job of posting content and it's personal and it's witty and it's funny and you get to know her better. But she had just shared a post recently about being named after a cartoon character. So we were talking a little bit about that and getting connected on that. And I think it would just be fun as we kick off, Mafalda, if you want to share a little bit of your backstory and you can loop us in with your name and how that came about if you want, and what got you into this path of sales.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to start. So yeah, my name is Mafalda, even though it's quite a common name in Portugal. I'm Portuguese, half Portuguese, half German. My mother always liked this cartoon from Argentina, and she was like, I want, my daughter to be, strong, independent, critical thinking, all of that. And Mafalda is that. The cartoon is that. And the only thing that me and that Mafalda, we are very different, is she doesn't like soup and I do. So so that's,
you have to in Germany, right? It's cold a lot. You gotta.
Exactly. And we have a huge soup culture in Portugal. We are very snobby about soup and coffee for some reason. And that's what my mother named me after. And she always made sure I knew, and she always gave me the full collection of books for me to read. And so that's that for my name. And as I said, I was born in Portugal. I lived in the United States, I lived in South Korea, I'm now living in Germany. And so I've been living in 3 different continents.
Wow.
And yeah, and I started my sales career in the US.
Mhm.
Like everyone else, I didn't plan to work in sales. I'd never met a person who said, you know what, since I was a kid, I wanted to work in sales.
Yeah.
But I went there to do my master's in the States.
Mhm.
And when you study there, when you have the F1 visa, you can then upgrade for a 1-year working visa.
Mm.
And I did, but I had to find a job also because, you know, my bills were piling up. I really need to pay them,
Yeah.
and my rent and etc. But because I didn't have much work experience, and Americans, they work while studying and they work a lot. So when they finish studies, usually they already have some work experience, which doesn't happen when you come from Portugal. So
Mm.
I was like, all right, I'm on a visa. I'm not a local and I don't have work experience. So it was really hard to find a job. And the only job that took me was 100% sales commission job, because it was like, guess what, no
Mm.
risk for them. They were not paying me a salary anyway if I didn't sell.
Right.
So they were the ones who's like, yeah, you can work. And I was like, it's not that I'm interested in working 100% sales commission, but I have no other choice at the moment. So I'm going to go for it. And because I'm Portuguese, they're like, you can sell to the Latin American market, right? I'm like, well, I don't really speak Spanish. You learn it.
Wow. So you got to learn. Okay. So you got to learn a new language and
While
sell
working
100%
100%
commission.
commission. Yes,
Really?
that's the best way for you to learn a language. A month later, you're fluent because you have no other choice.
You have to be. What were you selling?
Don't judge me. Timeshare.
I've sold so many things. I sold Yellow Pages, my first like quote unquote legit sales job out of school. I sold Yellow Pages, which you may not even know because a lot of people don't even know that. That makes me sound like a dinosaur.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I still remember. I still know what Yellow
Okay.
Pages
Yeah,
are.
I get it. Yeah. Okay. So you like cut your teeth. Wow. Learning new language, 100% commission, selling timeshare. What was that like?
In the Florida sun. It was
Oh
in
my
the outlet
gosh.
mall. So I was like, yeah, 40 degrees. I don't know, 90 Fahrenheit, 40 Celsius, sun on your face. Yeah, was interesting.
Wow.
But hey, I was happy because I was making money. I was like, if I had a normal job, being junior, right, with my lack of, I would be making less money, right? So an entry job, I was 21. So an entry job would be making with a normal salary, I would be making less. Right
Right.
there, it's like I have no limits. So I'm making
Yeah.
more, like depending on the week, but you know, you cannot see week by week. You have to see by the end of the month or by the end of the year how much you made, right? And I
Right.
was like, I'm making more than if I would be like a receptionist or something like that in Florida. So I was like, fine.
Oh
And
my God.
after that, nothing else is scary. You know, when you do 100% commission, you set yourself for, you know, a very good start,
Right.
because it's like nothing else is difficult, you know.
How did you, so I actually just want to take a moment on that because I think I was just talking with a friend of mine about just rejection in sales and how prevalent it is and how you have to have such a strong mindset to be able to get past
Yeah.
that. So I'm imagining you faced a lot of that in that
Yes.
type of role. What mindset did you develop that helped you be able to look back and say, actually, this is great. I'm making more than I could working as a receptionist or whatever. Like, how did you overcome the rejection?
I to be honest, because I was always, I have to actually thank my mother and my grandmother for that, because both of them are extremely, you know, strong women. My grandmother, you know, in Portugal, we had a dictatorship until 1974, and women didn't have much rights by law by then. You know, you couldn't have your own passport. Yada. I could go on with the horrible things that we didn't have access to before 1974. But my grandmother, she didn't give to them. So it's like, I don't care. I'm going to work with my husband, not with my husband.
Ah,
She learned at the time French, English, and a bit of German. So she did the negotiations with the construction companies.
wow.
And she's like, I'm going to do that. So I was raised like my grandmother, like that, with my mother. And I always took rejection okay, even from young ages, because I was like, I'm doing what I can. I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Some days I win, some days I don't, and we cannot win every day. And and I just don't take it personally. So in sales was like, okay, I lost this client, or they say they don't understand my very broken Spanish at the time. I'll just like laugh and move on, you know, like when something doesn't work out, you either learn or you laugh from it, you know?
Yes. Learn or laugh. I actually really love that.
Yeah.
I I think when you train your mindset to be that way, everything gets so much easier. This is a completely random side story, but yesterday we have a brand new car we bought a couple weeks ago, and I was backing out and I didn't do anything different from what I normally do, but I scraped the whole front side against this brick wall. And I was like,
Oh
the
my
version
God.
of me before I had worked on my mindset would have been really upset about this, but I honestly just laughed. I was like, because what's
Yeah.
great about when you're in sales or an entrepreneur is there's always more money. Like you can just go get more money, take care of it. It's more like an inconvenience. But I was like, well, that was inconvenient. I'm going to move on and laugh. Right. So same in sales and business, right? I love that. Learn or
And the
laugh.
reason why we make more money when it's a variable income, it's because it's more risky, right?
Yeah.
It's the same when you
Mhm.
invest, right? High
Mhm.
risk, high return, low risk, low
Yes.
return. Same with salaries. The reason why you have like what people have like like let's say stable salary, it's because there is no risk to it, right? Therefore they
Yeah.
make less.
Yes.
If you have a variable or a commissioning, it has to pay off the risk.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
people have to embrace that mindset. And it's okay if they don't. I have a friend of mine. She says, I don't want that. I'd rather make less money and know what I have in the end of the day. And that's okay. We also need
Yes.
these people, right? And you
Yes.
have the others like me, like you, who are like, no, I prefer to take the risk and
Yes.
make more. And I can deal with that. And if I can't, if that takes a toll on my mental health, then maybe I should review my priorities, and maybe I should do what my friend does, because she started feeling at the time that that was taking a toll on her happiness at work. So she shouldn't be doing that. And she made enough money with the normal salary.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So you also have to put the things in the balance and say, what works for you?
I think that's so important. I was having that conversation with someone the other day. Like, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I think you just shared them. Like, I don't think everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. And I don't think everyone is a good fit for sales, and that's okay.
And
Because if
that's okay.
everyone was wired the same way, it would be a very boring world.
No, and we needed every profession. We need doctors, we need pilots, we need people who clean hotels, cleaners, there are so many things we need, and so many professions that I don't have to like be good and liking this lifestyle, like I remember my boyfriend from teenage, like my ex-boyfriend when I was a teenager. At the time, he was always very into numbers and mathematics at school, and I always liked arts. I like literature, I like to read, I like to write, I like music, I like theater. And I remember him saying when I was studying music or theater, he was looking like with like despise, like, oh, how can you like this? And then he said, well, I'm so glad people like this, so I don't have to do it. And I think the same way, like I'm so happy there are people in academia, like my brother, he's doing a PhD in deep learning applied to meteorology. I'm so happy. I don't want to do a PhD, and it's definitely not in deep learning,
Exactly. So the power of knowing yourself, which I think is so important in this process.
Yes. And what works for you?
Yes, exactly. So tell us about, I know it's more than we have time for today, but just high level, the journey then from this timeshare sales job outside in the summer heat, commission only, to what you're doing now, which is business development for a very cool, very cutting edge sales AI enablement company.
I will try to summarize. So it's been 10 years in between, more or less. In the meantime, I've worked in Florida, I worked always for sales in timeshares, and then I've worked in Berlin, in London, in Belgium, also in sales, but also in events management. I organize a lot of conferences, and so I did also event management. I did operations manager, so I was operations manager as well, with a bit of sales because I also trained my teams in selling. And then I went back to sales with SaaS, and then I've been there, ever since. And I always say, when people say there is no more stressful job than sales, like there is event management. Like I'm sorry, but like there is,
Yep.
for me, from every job I did, I think the most stressful one was events, because everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and
Mhm.
things that cannot go wrong will still go wrong,
Oh my
and
gosh. Yeah.
it's the lack of control is even more, it's bigger than in sales, in my view. So yeah, so long story short, that's what I've been doing the last 10 years.
I love that. I love that. And we're going to get into some of what you help and teach people to do through Wonderway shortly. But I'm just curious on that journey for you, because I always think it's so helpful to hear, again, to hear the mindset of someone who has developed a really successful sales career. What would you say, Mafalda, what's the biggest obstacle you faced over the past 10 years on your sales journey? And then how did you overcome it?
I would say I have like one internal, mine, and one external. So internal is, and I should be ashamed of saying this, but there you go. I'm going to be very blunt. I'm very bad with technology. Like I don't like, I didn't have a smartphone until 2019 because I don't like it.
Yeah.
So I have one of my weaknesses as a professional and as a professional sales is I'm not very tech savvy. Of course, I know how to use my CRM,
Sure.
but I'm not these people who love technology and love to work, and takes me longer than I would say a person who likes technology to figure something out in terms of tools. So
Okay.
for me, that's something that it's an obstacle in my professional, because while I'm very fast in other things, I'm not fast in tool management and use.
Okay.
And tools, when they're really well used, they're your best friends, and I know that. And when I manage them, I love them. I was like, oh, why were you so lazy to get to learn this? Your life is so much, but it's something that really, the process of learning how to use a tool, it's dreading for me personally. So
And
that's
so does
something
that, have you found that like, was there a time when that slowed you down or you had to get past the mindset with it? Like
yeah,
how has
I
that
had
shown
to
up for you?
really think, okay, the next 2 hours will be dreadful. You're gonna hate them, but you need to do that. So this is something in me that I think it's an obstacle, to be more efficient as a professional overall. And the second one that I've seen in my life, and it's something, and I think it's a good way to talk about business development and sales in general, is most companies they don't onboard and train their sales reps either at all or properly, and you cannot expect good results from it.
Yeah.
And I remember, obviously, at the beginning, I wasn't good at it because I had no clue what I was doing. I was even selling in a language that I didn't, speak
Right.
at the time. But even later on, when I moved to SaaS sales, it was like the onboarding was terrible. And I've heard these horror stories over and over and over again. And this is a huge obstacle in everyone's lives all over the world. You cannot expect your sales reps to perform when you provide them either no training or poor training.
Or poor training.
What's going to happen is the proactive ones, like I did, they will self-teach themselves and they go after. And it's not really their job. You should do that in life, but it's not your responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's not okay to leave people up to chance and up to their proactiveness. There are people who are more proactive than others. There are people who are more self-confident than others. So if people who are more self-confident, they trust themselves to train themselves, go after, try, and not being afraid to fail. But there are people who are afraid to fail, and when you're not training them, you're being very, very unfair to these people, because I don't mind failing. We talked about it. I don't mind being rejected. I don't care.
Right.
But many people do, and that's not okay to put them in that position.
So let's speak to that a little bit. And I'm going to actually take some notes while you talk, because we have a lot of listeners we've got, our listeners fall between typically either someone who's an entrepreneur or a sales professional. Then we have listeners outside of that. I would say most of ours probably fall in those two categories. So I'm just thinking about too, for sales managers who are listening in, or for entrepreneurs who are listening in, who maybe they're hiring their first salesperson, or they know it's time to expand. Like, what are some of the top things we should be doing to successfully train and onboard a new sales?
I love that question. First, in the onboarding, only give relevant information.
Okay.
So something that I've seen happening, and as you said at the beginning, I've corrected a lot of onboarding paths because it's one of my jobs here at Wonderway. And I've experienced myself as a salesperson being onboarded. They love to overload you with nice to have information. What happens is the newbie, you still don't have enough knowledge to prioritize. So you're gonna try to learn everything with the same eagerness. But then we have limited storage space in our brain. And then maybe you focusing in less important things. Is the managers or the person who is onboarding your job to tell you, this is what you need to learn. This is where you have to focus your energy. It's not my job to, out of 100 things, to say, number 20 is the one. No. So that's the first failure I see all the time. So the first 2 weeks, because even the essential information is already a lot. And people want to prove themselves and they are nervous. So you don't want to overwhelm them. The second mistake I see a lot is a lot of theory, a lot of videos and presentations, and no practice, no exercises. So like we, especially adult learning, we need to know two things. Why am I learning this? Because if I don't know why am I learning this, you don't have my buy-in, I'm not going to learn. I'm not at school. So, and second is, after I understand why I'm learning this, I need to apply to remember. And what happens many times is you have a 4 weeks onboarding full of theory, no exercises, no nothing, or just lame quizzes here and there. And then in the end, for example, on SDR, all right, did you understand all the 10,000 products we have and all the 10,000 technical personas we have? Good luck. And please bring results. That's not how it works. What we do, for example, I can give you an example at Wonderway, because I also onboard and train my business development team, and also another mistake I see often is a lot of focus on the product and product features, very little on the persona. And as an SDR, you better understand your persona. The product, it's okay. We have the account executives, you have sales engineers, we have technical support. You have to understand your persona even more than your product. So what we do, for example, here, I can give you a very concrete example, is I usually teach one persona, one of the many, the challenges, the priorities, and which part of my product solves and why, and what happens with and without our product. And then I ask them, for example, one assessment is write me a prospecting email, not a quiz, not a quiz. The quiz doesn't tell you anything. So write me a prospecting email. So your exercise is it's something related to what you're going to do in the end of the onboarding. If it's a good email, I even say send it. If you book a meeting, you book in your first or second week, which is very motivating as well. I've had SDRs booking 4 meetings in the second week because we did the exercises, we send them, let's see if it works. And this gives them confidence. That doesn't overwhelm them. On the opposite, they're like excited, like, all right, I booked a meeting. This doesn't look so difficult. they prove them. They will see. Or for example, if I want to see if they understood a certain product, I ask them to record a small video of them speaking about the product. Again, not a quiz. Tell me how would you pitch it, right? So imagine I'm this persona. I have this trigger. How would you pitch in 1 sentence? And then they record a video. So every single assessment is related to what they're going to do. So when they start working, they've done that without any risk before. They know how to do it because they've done it.
How long is typically a good sales training and onboarding program?
It depends a lot, but I would say for SDRs, I would say 2 weeks, the first part of the onboarding, meaning just onboarding. And then after the 2 weeks, you do like, you already working while being trained on extra things.
Okay.
So and then after that month, you can already start working with continuous training, because another mistake I see is, all right, here was the onboarding, and then see you in a year, or if you're not performing, let's do like a performance review or a performance plan to make you even more nervous about not reaching results. So that's also the thing. And also, like, in the first weeks of onboarding, personas, challenges, the basic of the tools that you need to use. And then you work while you continue being onboarded. So you're already booking meetings, you're already prospecting, but then you continue being trained. So you can then talk about objection handling. Why are we talking about objection handling in the first week when you're not handling any objection?
A valid point. So kind of try to stack it. And again, I'm asking these questions because some of our listeners are literally thinking about onboarding their first salesperson, or maybe they're doing it with, with quite a few, and they're working in a bigger corporation and they've been doing it for a longer amount of time. But you're saying stack the onboarding and training with what they're actually going to be bumping up against real world at that point in the sales process.
Yes.
Okay. That makes a ton of sense.
And if you don't need them to, for example, work with a certain tool up until a month or two later, don't train them on the tool. They will forget. They will forget. So let's only train them when they will use that.
That's a great point. So if someone's listening and they've been doing founder-led selling and and I know you probably work with, I'm imagining the organizations you work with are largely more established, but I'm just curious if you can speak to this for a moment. So if somebody has been doing most of the selling themselves and they're bringing on a salesperson now for the first time, they're giving up some control. They know that it's smart because they need to get somebody else in charge of handling this so they can free up their time. But what does the mindset shift need to be for someone to grow their sales team and to give up that control, knowing that not everyone is going to sell as well as them at the beginning? Like how do we need to be thinking about that?
So I think that's a great question, and definitely very relevant. So you need to set up your people for success, and you need to know you've done everything you could to do that. So like, obviously, and especially startups, I work in a startup, many things we have to figure them out, right? So, but like, the less you can have your people figure them out themselves, the better, right? So you have to make sure you give them all the information in the right way, and they understood it. And this will go back to what I've said. How do I know if they know how to write a good email? If they write a good email is an assessment, right? And I can tell you from all the data we have, usually people on board, so new SDRs who have great assessments, so who complete their assessments with really high grades, usually they are the top performers, because it's related, right? So if I give you a 5-star in an email that you wrote, or in a role play that you did a really good job, I'm assuming this is how you're gonna perform when it's real life, right? But if you're already from the beginning, your email is bad, why would I think that the email you're gonna write to an actual prospect will be good? Right. So you have to assure before you give your accounts and you give your brand and you give that to your newbie, you need to make sure they are ready by assessing them in the right way. Because if they do a great assessment, if they prove to you in the right way they can do the job, then you can be rest assured. If they deliver to you and they're like, they don't explain your product well or your branding, they don't communicate in the way you'd like them to, they don't really understand who is your ICP, in the sense that you ask them for top 20 accounts. If the top 20 are not good ones, then they're not going to do a good job. But if they are good, then why would they screw up when it's real life? Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Unlikely. It's pretty simple, actually, when you lay it out like that. So I love that. Tell everyone, because I know we've got just a couple more minutes here, Mafalda. I think we can't have you on without talking prospecting, and I think LinkedIn in particular, because you do such a great job on it. What are like 1 to 2 of the things that you see working best for you right now when it comes to prospecting on LinkedIn? Yeah. So basically, it's really important, and I know a lot of creators say that you post and you engaged on LinkedIn. So before you even start prospecting on LinkedIn, make sure that you post once a day, every day, Monday to Friday, and that you also engage on people's posts. So people know your face, know your name. So when you reach out to them, you're not such a stranger. So actually, a lot of the LinkedIn prospecting starts before you even reach out to the prospect.
Yeah.
And then when you do, I usually don't send, unless I have something very specific to say, I always send invites without any message.
Okay.
So that's seems to work much better, unless it's something specific, like Elise told me to reach out to you because of the, then it works best. But if you don't have nothing to say, or if you just want to see if they are interested in your solution, just don't say anything. The likelihood is much higher for them to accept you. And then and then something that I see a lot of SDRs doing, even the really good ones, and is like talk like a normal person. like I know it sounds such a weird and useless advice, but it's not. Like, even the best SDRs, when I check their emails on their messaging, they do everything correct. They understand the persona, they do the homework, they know how to research accounts, they do check, but they use jargon. That's a turn off, you know? Like, I remember training in my previous company, we were selling like software testing to engineers and quality assurance, and like, with our solution, you can, I know, something like gibberish, and I'm like, just say you can find bugs that they wouldn't, because it's testing in real life. Like, just say that
language. Yeah. Be a human being.
I know, exactly. And that's and especially if this is through an email, in LinkedIn, it has to be even more, because you're texting. So you have to give the feeling to your prospect that you're just texting like a normal person. And I think this is going to be even more important now with the AI, because with AI, you will see there is a lot of automation already on LinkedIn and on the messaging. It's going to get worse or better depending on
I don't think it's very good from what I've been experiencing so far. I have screenshots of like fail that I'm going to use somewhere somehow in a training.
Me neither, but the AI will get better. Eventually these will get better. So the more robotic you sound when it's you, even, right?
That's so true.
They'll think it's a robot, and it was you after all, but you just cannot write like a normal person.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So an exercise I recommend doing is, okay, you wrote your message, you wrote your email. Now imagine if you write exactly the same thing to a friend of yours. That's how exactly you should be, with formalities, obviously. Maybe don't say bro or dude to a prospect, but you know, that's a fun exercise, and I think you'll get your messaging much better, especially on LinkedIn when it's texting. It's messages, it's not an email.
Yeah. Okay, I love that.
Send voice messages.
I was just going to say voice messages are huge.
Are gold.
Gold. I agree.
And I can believe that it's still, I never give that advice on LinkedIn, because I say that's obvious. Everyone is saying that you should be doing that. I feel like if I say that on LinkedIn, it's already old advice, but apparently it's not. So definitely voice messages on LinkedIn, use them. They are gold. They will get you or either a meeting or referral or a no faster, which is great.
Yes. Just be human and do something a little bit different is what
and once again, please don't start your voice messages. Hello, I'm from Wonderway, the leading provider of no. Hey, how you doing? I saw you doing this. Would love to chat. Let me know.
Yep. Exactly. And it's amazing still to this day how many people haven't received a voice message on LinkedIn, I've found, and they're like, oh, that's so cool. I've never gotten one of those before. So just something different, human touch, personal
element. Once again, like, smile, use normal words, talk like a normal person.
Yes.
Don't send your rehearsed pitch on the voicemail or voice message on LinkedIn. You do that to your friends. How weird would that be? Hey, best friend, I would like to take you to the best restaurant in town. Like, no one talks like that. Well, I hope at least not my friends.
Yeah. No, I think it's what's also refreshing is just hearing from your perspective, and you're working, deep in the trenches of an AI company in the sales space, but it's still like that human touch is at the end of the day what is going to help you rise above. So
exactly. And still a parenthesis there is, and that's what we've been advocating in Wonderway, like my boss, Boone, the CEO, and also every time we write articles, we do webinars. Like, the AI is not here to replace the human in you. That's exactly where your strength is. AI will replace you, in admin stuff, in things you don't want to do actually.
Yeah.
Filling out CRMs, doing all the summaries for emails, etc., etc. So you should use AI to save time on stupid tasks or repetitive tasks. Like the AI can do it, so you can spend more time being human.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much. This was so fun. And so if somebody's listening and they want to go connect with you, Mafalda, on LinkedIn and learn more about what you're doing and what you're up to, tell them where to get in touch with you. Maybe mention your podcast. Let's tell everyone where they can connect further.
Thank you for that. So LinkedIn, Mafalda Johannsen, as you see it here. You don't need to write me like a connection message. Just send me a connection and I will accept. And on my podcasts, so one is A Day in the Life of. So I interviewed 3 heads of departments: head of data, head of engineering, head of sales, and I asked them what salespeople should be asking them. So what are your challenges? How does your day look like? Here's a prospecting email. What do you think about it? So it's free. It's on YouTube and on Spotify. You don't have to give your data to access it. So if your buyer persona is there, I really recommend you to listen to that episode. And then the other one is Sales Training Drag Listings, where I have you, Elise, in the future. We will record it in September, which is a very short podcast, 15 minutes. I ask 3 personal questions, so you get to know the speaker better. And then I ask 3 sales training mistakes. As you can see in the beginning of this podcast, I was speaking a lot about the mistakes people do on onboarding, and we basically tackle 3 mistakes per episode and per speaker.
Amazing. Amazing. And we'll link all of those in the show notes as well. This was so fun. And this is the power of what you're talking about. This is how we initially connected. It was LinkedIn connection request. And
I love that.
Built from there and just seeing where things go. So I think, one of my mantras for my life and for my clients too is like, let it be easy. Let it be easy. Let it be easy. And this is an example of how great things can come from just letting it be easy, connecting, being a real human, and walking what you talk.
And as I said in the beginning, without LinkedIn and this power of community, we would have never met. And I have the feeling with same people in the space. I actually have now a friend or 2 coming from LinkedIn connections. Awesome. So it can be a great way for even new friendships. So there you go.
Absolutely. Which I will put it out there. I think we're going to be great friends and continue to do good things together in the future. So this was so fun. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
The time. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And to you, my listener, like I said, we're going to link all of Mafalda's information in the show notes, but go connect with her. She is a woman who is doing big things in the sales world. And we
need more women in sales.
We do. We absolutely do. So go connect with Mafalda. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. You can head on over to elisearcher.com for all sorts of goodies, trainings to help you elevate your sales, step into a greater level of financial abundance, and truly transform into the person that you are meant to be. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I want to encourage you to go check out another one of our She Sells Radio episodes right now for continued inspiration. See you on our next episode.